Hi there, hope you're doing well. This will be the first video that I post here about simplifying trig expressions, and basically everything that's in this video you can use when you move on to verifying trigonometric expressions also. Okay, so there's no examples in this video. I just wanted to outline for you a couple very handy rules of thumb. Alright, and the first one is to pretty much every chance you get, you should change all your expressions to sine or cosine. Okay? And that's pretty easy to do if you just remember all of those definitions, you might call them, of tangent and cotangent, secant and cosecant, because they were always kind of given in terms of sine or cosine. So having those little substitutions at your fingertips is going to be very helpful. And of course you remember that if any expression is squared, then you can write it in terms of sine or cosine squared also. Okay? So that's the first rule of thumb, change everything to sine or cosine. The next rule of thumb is to basically just use algebra. And algebra has a big word here, really, and there's a lot of different little tricks. I'm just going to outline a few that I find most useful, but there are lots of other ones here like this. So the first one is to don't forget about factoring and using the distributive property to multiply or to simplify different expressions, okay? And just wanted to highlight a couple of useful tips here. The difference of squares factoring formula is going to be very useful, and also multiplying out or squaring a binomial, that's also going to be a helpful thing. So remember these algebraic structures when you're working through some of these problems. They will help you simplify expressions ultimately. The next little algebra trick is a little bit more of an algebra trick and a trigonometry trick, and that is to use the Pythagorean identities for the purpose of substitutions and simplifying expressions. Okay, so you got to have this trig knowledge there, along with all your basic definitions of your trig expressions in terms of sine and cosine. The Pythagorean identities is another set of tools or set that you can use to substitute and to simplify expressions. Okay, so those will be very handy. They'll come up a lot. And finally, the other algebra trick that I wanted to mention is whenever you see a fraction, or a pair of fractions I should say, always try to combine fractions together using common denominators. It's very important that you keep that skill alive and healthy, let's put it that way. If it's something that you've kind of avoided doing in the past, you're going to get really good at combining fractions together with common denominators. And so this is a very big trick here. It sometimes is tough, and so you have to get tough to get these problems simplified out and to prove what you need to prove. So keep this in mind when you're working through these problems. You can refer back to this set of tricks, or tips I should say, when you're simplifying or when you're verifying these trig expressions. Okay, so be sure to watch some of the other videos which do contain examples on verifying trigonometric identities. Okay, let's get busy.